Good day to you all, and welcome to Carpos Corner, episode number 4. Quattro! Today I'm going to be talking, obviously. Behind me I have my itinerary for the day, which, in this case of these videos, I just write down a topic that comes to mind, and then I expound on how I feel about it, without any preconceived notions or ideas or notes about what I want to say. And I think that that's perhaps where I do my best work, if you want to call it that. Because work to me is processing and learning. When I speak out loud, I'm learning about myself, about my world. I'm learning through my discussions with other people as well. If I say something that's too outlandish, people will call me out. I made a video the other day, I think it was my first Carpos Corner, and talked about synchronicities and dreams, and somebody said thanks for talking more about the mystical side. And I thought about it, and I was like, it's funny, this person probably doesn't know that in my 5 years ago, 6 years ago, that was what my channel was completely about. Like, I talked about synchronicities, the occult, numbers, numerology, religion all the time, because I was in that phase of my life. And I've since moved on and don't talk about God or religion anymore. And I wanted to explain why, but also give and maybe lend a different perspective on what God really means. First off, the etymology of the word, the term God, really nobody's quite sure where it comes from. But the term deity, or deity, however you want to pronounce it, it has ancient roots. And for most people, a deity is either masculine, feminine, or non-binary, if you want to use that term. God, which just means that this God, by the term God, just means a higher power that is beyond humans, that plays a role in their lives and perhaps controls the world to any particular limits or unlimited, depending on which religion you take. Whether you're a monotheistic religion where you think God is all and takes care of all and created all, one God, or you are polytheistic where you believe that there are different gods at different levels that pertain to each kingdom, plant gods perhaps, human gods. And I don't really fall in either of those camps. I believe that God is everything. And before you say that's a cop-out, it's not pantheism, it's not quite the same. Each person has to decide what belief means to them. I'm not a religious person. But if you're not also a religious person, ask yourself, has there ever been a time in your life where you've been in a bad situation and just said, please, if there's anyone out there, if there's anything out there, if God exists, help me through this shit? Is there some shame in saying that? I don't think so. I think that if it helps people, then it's worth doing. Hands down, regardless of any other beliefs or ideas or rational thought. Rationality only goes so far. I'm a rational person. I'm kind of a party pooper sometimes. As my brother calls me, the Debbie Downer, because I tend to, pick apart things that I see aren't true, or maybe look for some aspect of it that isn't real. And people don't like that. But at the same time, I don't feel that way. I don't feel I don't feel negative in my daily life. I always look for the silver lining, but when I'm talking with people, I bring up the negative. And it's a weird thing, and I've realized this over time. The reason why is because I want to get to the bottom of things. We could talk all day about the positives and say, yeah, that's cool, that's awesome, that's beautiful, that's rad, but what about this? And when it comes to God, I've never been more critical of anything in my life than I have of religion through my life. And I've really tempered myself after I've learned how beneficial it is to so many people. By not looking at the extreme cases, like the Crusades, for example, sailing ships around the world and forcing people to take your religion isn't exactly a peaceful endeavor. And I know people will point to the same thing with Islam, and I'm not even going to go there. I know that for the most part, most people use religion as a peaceful tool for peaceful means. It's the same way with money. Some people use it to live, some people are greedy, and they think that it's something that makes them better than other people. But let me get to this point here. What is God and who is God? I have had so many people through my life tell me that I should believe in God, but none of them really mean I should just believe in a God or any particular God. Every single person who tells me I should believe, who is a believer themselves, what they really mean, and I've confirmed this consistently, they really mean is that you should believe in their God and their version of God. Even within Christianity, all the different sects and groups within those sects and the way that they talk. I've got so many ridiculous, piles of literature. I've got so many books. I've, of course, got the Bible, which I read Revelation when I was like 16. I was fascinated. Then I've got the first gospel, the Gospel of Mark. And then I've got the Lives of Saints. And this is actually a really cool book, embossed cover and everything. And I'm fascinated with them all. But many people would stop there. They'd say, that's all you need. That's Christianity. That's what I believe. And you should believe it too. And I just don't buy that. Because there's also people who come by my house with this book, the Book of Mormon. I invite them in my house. We have conversations. I believe that after my conversations with the Mormons, they have a better outlook on religion than any other group that I've ever come across. And I mean this because as absurd as their beliefs are, and as absurd as they know they are, their family units are usually pretty organized and pretty tight and love each other and do fun things. And that's really what life's about to me, is family, friends, connections, community. And I'm not even going to go into the dark side. There have been some things that came out about the Mormon church, just like any other church, about them protecting bad things happening to kids and not telling any authorities and not dealing with it within the church. I'm not going to get into that in this video. This is more just about the belief itself, because it's unfair to attach everyone's beliefs to what a few people do. Because these people could believe anything. The people who are going to do horrendous things, it doesn't matter what religion they are. It's just something inherent within people. But then there's this book. Many of you may or may not have seen this before. This little seal on this. This is Christian Science. Science and Health with Key to the Scriptures, which from Mary Baker Eddy. And she, in the 1800s, decided she's going to come up with her own version of Christianity. And I've never been religious in that form, but here's where I did get sucked in. Things like this. Deepak Chopra. Ooh, the third Jesus. I read this one. I wasn't exactly impressed, but things like The Secret. I kind of fell for that for a while, believing that my intentions out to the universe would come back tenfold, and all you had to do was just believe in what you want. And I think that really falls in line with what people want out of beliefs in general. They want to feel like they have some control over their lives. And if not their lives, their afterlife. Some people might find belief in, and happiness within religion. Some people might find it within people, these fake-ass gurus like Deepak Chopra. Some people might find it in things like this, Magic Numbers by Dr. Matrix. This is a fascinating look into numerology and gematria, if you will. None of these things have brought me any closer to happiness or the truth. Neither has philosophy, even though philosophy, I think, is one of the roundest views because it encompasses religion, drugs, belief, everything into it. The last two books I grabbed just off the shelf were, one was Mythology, because I think that ancient mythology is perhaps one of the most important aspects of understanding who we are, because it delves into these mythological gods. When I was young, I remember thinking, oh God, people actually believed that Zeus was real. And I come to understand now that no, they didn't think that Zeus was real. Zeus was a symbol. He was an idea. Some probably did believe, but a lot knew that they were metaphors. They were archetypes for humanity, for parts of us. And that's why there were so many gods. But not just us, but nature, weather, ways to explain the world. And then as we moved into the 21st century and we discovered all the land and we traveled everywhere, there was a final frontier. And that was psychedelics, psychedelic substances, which this book, DMT, The Spirit Molecule. It was from Rick Strassman. He was a doctor, and he did a bunch of studies with patients who reported back to him very similar experiences, and he wanted to connect the dots and correlate it to some, seeing into the unforeseen. These things are fascinating. They're beautiful. The stories that we have of people who have gone into either deep religious, experience. Let me just say, going back in time, many of the so-called prophets and gurus who have gone into caves and had visions, we know now that even if they weren't taking psychedelic drugs, they were at the very least starving themselves. And going into darkness for a long period of time has been known to create hallucinations. It's what the Native Americans called the vision quest, where they would send the young person up into a cave and he would be closed in that cave for a period of days without food or water sometimes. And this was considered his vision quest. And the reason for doing this is to dull the senses. Basically, you're putting a person in a sensory deprivation tank. The hallucinations can be very intense in that situation. And just like taking psychedelics. But taking psychedelics themselves is somewhat of a shortcut. It somewhat bypasses a lot of that. The whole idea is to have visions that you can try to interpret for yourself to understand what it means. My point being that many, if not most of the, what we would call prophets who wrote these stories were probably under the influence of either drugs or sleep deprivation or both. And maybe there was some deeper connection with something that we don't understand, but it's never something you can put into words. The experiences that I've had with, if you want to call it the divine, are my own, and I could never even begin to explain them to other people. It feels silly and shallow when I try to. When I say, I've been to this Godhead, this point of full understanding, but it fades because the human mind can't comprehend these things. It's like you're getting information at 1,000,000 miles an hour and you get it, and then it's gone because you can't hold it. It's very difficult to explain. And I'm not just talking about psychedelics. I'm talking about epiphanies and, realizations, aha moments of genius people have had through history that have led us to where we are now. But on a secondary note here, none of the technology that we have has benefited us in the way that we had hoped it would. Sure, we can lead longer lives. If you'd asked me 10, 15 years ago, I'd say I want to live to be, as old as possible. Nowadays, all I want to do is live a good life. All I want to do is be happy for the time I am here. I don't care when or how I go. That's not a concern. And I think that religion has helped a lot of people overcome their fear of that unknown. The fact that one day you will not exist. Today you exist. You go to work. You do your normal routine. And a lot of folks get really bothered by this. And I'm telling you, it's best to just process it and get over it because everybody deals with it. Especially if you're young. A lot of people go through an existential crisis. And I've seen this in a lot of young people today. They're depressed. They're nihilistic. Look, you're not fucking depressed. You're just a teenager. Grow up and move on, and you'll see how much worse it gets, but how much better you get at dealing with it. And that's the key. How good are you at dealing with shit? That's where stoicism comes in. That's where we need to learn how to be better people. For ourselves, not to impress others. It's not about the money, the status, the fame, the wealth, the fancy clothes, fancy cars, big house, any of that shit. Live modest, be happy, save your money, buy things that you want and experiences that you need. Because that to me is divine experience. When I post, say, a picture of my hanging out with my family, it's like, to me, that is like the moment of like, I've got to share this moment, even though it's not someone else's moment. People understand because they have their own moments that are similar. We all relate on that. Yes, these are the moments, that matter. But we all get wrapped up in the negative sometimes. And so that's why I guess this series, I'm going to try to not be negative at all whatsoever. I'm not here to bash religion. I'm not here to talk shit about, other people's beliefs because I'm way, way, way past that. I just don't care. I think that everyone's beliefs are totally valid as long as they serve them and they don't harm others in the process. I'm not the Richard Dawkins of the world, people who think that religion should just go away or that it's ever going to go away. I think that we just need to better handle ourselves. It's like nuclear weapons. Once you have them, you have them. It's a security blanket. And no nation's going to totally give up their nukes, just like no person's going to totally give up their beliefs in something better and bigger. And for all those who try to bring others down for their beliefs, for the people who try to, like the atheist communities, if you want to call it that, to me, it's one of the most absurd, backwards ideas there is out there. If you don't believe in God, fine, don't believe in God, move on with your life. But they take it upon themselves to attack religious people and religious communities, verbally, of course, usually. And I've found after investigating this over the years that many of them are ex-Christians or ex-Mormons or ex-Jehovah's Witnesses. Oh, for God's sake. Those are some of the most obscene. Jehovah's Witnesses are, there is a case to be made for an obscene belief system. But, like I said, it's not my business, but it is when they come to my door. So I definitely have my discussions with them when they come to my door. But at any rate, my thought on belief is that if it serves you and it does you well, you shouldn't have to impress anyone else with it. You shouldn't have to convince anyone else of it. And my belief system doesn't include a book or a guide. Unfortunately, I don't believe that the Bible is the be-all, end-all of books, that it has all the answers. In fact, I feel like most of the people I've talked to who say that really haven't even read it. A lot of people would rather have it read to them. And I've always said this: if I were actually a Christian that really believed that my eternal salvation depended on me going to heaven, the first thing I would do is take the time to learn Hebrew and read an original Bible so I could really comprehend it. Like, that just seems like if this is really the book, then why wouldn't you? Like, that should be your life goal, your biggest effort, to learn as much as you can. And I think it's because a lot of people really aren't full-hearted into it. I think a lot of Christians, just like a lot of Muslims and a lot of Jews even, a lot of all religions, are just kind of, yeah, my family's Jewish, so I'm Jewish, that kind of thing. You don't really give it much thought or go to church or do anything. And that to me isn't really belief. It's almost kind of a cop-out, like just saying, oh, I believe in this because it's easier than saying, I don't know what to believe, and creating your own system of belief, which I think is healthier. I really think it's important that we come to terms with what we know because it's healthier for us as individuals. It's extremely important for us to be able to say, this is what I think or don't think. So my beliefs are pretty simple. I don't know where we come from or where we're going, but I believe that there is a higher energy, a higher power, if you will, that may or may not be very vested in our particular lives. But I don't get caught up on the argument of eternity or determinism versus free will. I think that all these things are pointless. I think that a lot of the philosophical debates in the end are just stupid. They're fun to explore, but to think that you have the conclusion to it, I think is dumb. Because they are things we can never know. You can't know eternity. It's like the Big Bang Theory. You can do all the math you want. You're not going to know how the universe began, and you're never going to know how the universe will finish. This is just something that is so out of our reach. We can try, just like we can try to measure things, measure brain, and understand what consciousness is. But of all the things we've discovered, we still don't understand what I am, what you are, what the individual consciousnesses are. Not only that, but how they seem to synchronize with each other in certain instances. With you listening to me right now, science says that your brain is syncing with my speaking and that we're showing similar neurological patterns. It's fascinating. And being human is fascinating. And I think that to me that means that just merely existing is enough of a mystery to where I don't feel like I need any solid answers. to just be grateful for what I have, to be grateful for each day. Try to make the most of what I want to do and what I can do, and acknowledge the things that maybe I can't do, and just be a human and live my life as best I can, because it goes by quick. And ultimately, we all want the same thing, to be happy. But that's a fleeting feeling. I think the best we can do is to be content with being unhappy at times and being happy at times, and try to maximize the way that we view the world as a positive thing. Because when something happens to you, your car breaks down, maybe you meet somebody cool that helps you out. A store is closed that you wanted to go to. Maybe you go to a different store you've never been to, and you discover something. We don't know the long-term benefits of the bad things that happen to us. By keeping that in mind, we don't really even need a belief system other than to just say, hey, what's next? And those are my thoughts on God. God bless.